Hello, lovelies. Welcome to this episode of Lessons from the Universe with Jennifer Hall. I look forward to sharing my channeled message with you today, and if you love it, please remember to like, share, review, and subscribe. Hello, lovelies. I am recording this episode, podcast 34, on September 11th, 2018. I wasn't intending to have this conversation today, but I woke up and my husband already had the news on, and I was reminded of this incredible, amazing day that I had 17 years ago. Probably the most intense. It is a day that is still unparalleled and in many ways undescribable, despite the fact that I'm going to attempt to describe it to you today. It was one of those days where it ends and all you can think about is gratitude. Gratitude for the place in life that you are and the trust that has been imbued upon you. It was a day where nothing else mattered but the tiny room that I was in and the 20-something 6-year-olds that shared that space with me. Most of you know I was a first grade teacher for a very long time. Some of the highlights of my life. You know, I didn't realize at the time that the work that I'm known for today started back then. Back in the 90s, I guess. You know, children are super intuitive. The kids would ask me questions that none of the other teachers got. If I would ask them, they looked at me like I was crazy. Kids didn't ask them the things that they asked me. You know, they knew. They knew who I really am, I guess. I was blessed with the opportunity to teach them all kinds of truth. You know, they were so eager and malleable, and they could grab onto it and embrace it. They would change right before my eyes. We didn't have to discuss God or religion. You know, they just got it. And of course, I didn't know I was a channel back then. I just knew that words would pour out of my mouth, and somehow I always knew what to say, and I didn't question it because it just happened. Every day is special for some reason, but this day was undescribable. You may have already guessed. It was September 11th, 2001. It was a Tuesday. I woke up squishy that day. You know, I just wanted to snuggle and go back to sleep. And my world felt very small until I stepped outside. It was a particularly beautiful day. I still remember how the sky was all gold and orange. And on the way to work that day, every light was green and every face was shining. And when my students came in, they were all full of hugs and I love yous, and they got right to work. But that is not why my day was so incredible. I know you remember September 11th. It was a pretty intense day, you know, in the world outside of my little room. My little room that had 8 computers and 5 tables and a blackboard. I still had chalk. And 20-something 6-year-olds. But the tragedy of that day is actually just a prelude, a slice of why I drove home that day in tears. It seemed like a normal day. I hadn't been at work very long before the emails and the phone calls started, and there was just fear and anger and horror everywhere. Except in my little room. The principal kept emailing us more and more secrets, things we were supposed to keep from the children until the end of the day. The fear was mounting and growing, and the emails kept coming more and more quickly, and they revealed more and more details, plane after plane, and building after building, and fear upon fear. And yet, as I looked out over my space, over my classroom, there were just 8 computers and 5 tables and 1 blackboard and these precious children. And me, of course. And this presence, the holding of truth. I could see what was going on throughout the school. It was open concept back then. And there were teachers around me, breaking. But I couldn't. I looked at these children and I knew that this moment would forever define their lives. It would shape how they dealt with tragedy and emotion. And somehow, I grew stronger. I looked out at these beautiful little faces, the ones that hung on my every word and my hugs and my smiles, and somehow I grew into a mountain. Fear grew outside of our space. But in that moment in time, they remained the same, just as God, the universe, spirit, remains the same, always present, always good, even within those people who caused all of this chaos and pain. And I look out at these happy children, uncharacteristically calm for any day. And there's Cody. He is still completely unaware that his grandfather was in one of those buildings. And Catherine, whose uncle was a general. And I'm aware that the teacher down the hall has a daughter that's an American Airlines flight attendant, and our office manager's son is literally walking away from the Twin Towers through smoke and fire and devastation, just hoping, that maybe he'll get home in time to hug his daughter before she goes to sleep. All of this is coming in emails, email after email after email, and I'm supposed to act normal. So what do? Affirmations. Affirmations, right? So here I am, saying in my head, chaos precedes all good things. Chaos precedes all good things. All things work together for good, over and over and over again. Then I get what for me is the biggest news of the day. It is my responsibility to explain the day's events to these children, to these innocents. We can't possibly send them home, right? These are latchkey kids. We can't send them home to see this on the news, to hear about it in some devastating way. We can't. They have to hear it from an adult that they love and respect. And people are freaking. Teachers are freaking. What do they say? How will the children react? And I remembered a prayer that I had heard somewhere. Father, Mother, God, you have created me to express you, and I do so with grace and ease. Precious universe, you have created me to express you, and I do so with grace and ease. All things work together for good. I am here for a reason. How do I handle this power? And I decided right then that truth would just speak through me. I continued to just think good and light and love and wrap people up. And instead of working frantically to find the words, I just kept saying grace and ease, grace and ease, grace and ease. And then my students began to sing one of those songs that I taught them, that I wish I could remember where I got it from. I do my work each day, and I know I do my work each day, and I know I do my work each day, and I know I'm the best that I can be. I sang it over and over again. And I'm like, oh, thank you, God. That is exactly the message that I needed, to remember. That's the key for all of us. We have to remember who we are, who every other living, breathing person really is. In truth, a perfect child of the universe. Sometimes blinded by their flesh. Each and every one being the best they can be in that moment. And then I thought about Eric Butterworth. From him, I learned that I don't need to worry because I have God, I have the universe within me. And then I thought about Job, which surprised me, but Job had everything. And then it was all swept away, blown from the sky, demolished, like those once proud buildings. And when Job's whole world collapsed, he said, "What I so greatly feared has come upon me." And once he quit fighting and he accepted it, his life actually flourished. And I decided in that instant that I would teach my children to send love and light out to the world, to defend themselves and anyone willing to receive it from taking on the fear of destruction, to send hope. I told them that together we could help each other, if not the fearful everywhere. And I share this story really just in hopes of adding you to the ranks. Because quite honestly, just by my consciously knowing that you hear my words, I believe we magnify that power. Not only to encompass ourselves and each other, but the whole world, The 100th monkey, right? The tipping point. We've talked about that before. And that is exactly what I told my students, my babies. I'll ask you what I asked them. Has fear or worry ever helped you? Now, you got to let go of that old race idea that if you don't worry, you don't care. And be really honest. Has fear or worry ever helped you? No. They only cloud your thinking and your judgment. They steer you away from the truth. The truth that all things work together for good, in their own time, in their own way. And I know on many levels that resolution's still unclear. But who are we to question time? And I realize today that these children who sat with me that day are in their early 20s. They are our future. Who will they be? Where will they lead us? What do they know now with those seeds planted in them then? Fear and worry never helped anyone. It never solved a single problem. In fact, the only thing that fear and worry ever did for anyone is cause ulcers and bowel trouble and heart attacks and, more fear and more worry. Fear and worry never helped anyone. When you feel them, say, no, that's not me. Brush it away. Brush it away as far from you and those you love as you possibly can. Hold the truth instead. When the mess flashes in your mind, choose. Choose to see the wonderful new creations that will replace the old. See the afflicted, whole and perfect and happy. Even if you don't believe it at first, do it anyway. If you can see it in pictures, great. If not, describe it to yourself in words and overlay it with the strongest emotion you can muster. Smile. Smile at the potential. Remember a time when you rose above apparent chaos and destruction and how you felt when you first realized that everything would be okay, that all things really do work together for good, and strive to feel that glorious feeling again. Remember it and add it to this new imagery. Feel the creative energy, that power in and all around you. And if it's big enough, send it. Send it out into the world. That day, the children and I cried together, and we also smiled together. They left with a sense of purpose. And if they could, you can too. This is how I can help. By holding the truth, the big picture, by sending light and love. The conflict then is just the people around us. What do we do when the people around us, sometimes the people we love, are drowning in fear and worry and struggle? What do we do when they can't let go of their own pain or fear? We want to help them. We want to free them. But we can't. Unless they ask us, unless they open the door. But until they do, don't push them. It doesn't help. Don't push them. Don't try to change them. But be careful not to absorb their fear either. Misery loves company. And for many, there is comfort in getting you to be fearful with them. Do not allow it. Just pet them, beloved. Pet them and say, "It's okay. I love you." And leave them be. Forcing someone to change never works anyway. Just send them arrows of love and go someplace where you can be alone to co-create with the universe. Get away, if only for a moment, and hold your idea of good in your mind. Feel the love and the joy. Feel the peace that passes understanding. And say, there it is. There's my normal. So that you can return to the world renewed. Hold your image of positive outcomes and bless them. This, the equivalent, or something better. When the bell rang for dismissal that day, the kids just piled on me, grubby little hands and hugs and kisses. They glowed with power. The power to send good to the world. The power to keep other people's fears and worries at bay. And of course, every day for weeks on end, they came in with questions. They came in with fear. And every day, they left with hope. That's a symbol, The fears will visit us. The worries will pass through our space. Let there be space between you. Let them pass by and speak the truth within yourself, to your soul, and to those who are ready to listen. If those little children can do it, So can you, beloved. Whatever it is, no matter how big or how small, if a child whose parents help feed them fear can stand up against it, so can you. Because the power to change our own reality and the greater one begins with what we focus on, in our hearts and in our minds. I do my work each day, and I know I'm the best that I can be. Just do your best, beloved. Do your best, and let it be good enough. Until next time, namaste. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today for this episode of Lessons from the Universe with Jennifer Hall. If you haven't already, come out and find me on social media, and if you're inspired by the podcast, please consider clicking that little green patron button at the top of the screen. Here, you can help keep us growing and flowing, and you can gain access to what I call Jen in real life. That is patron-only content. If you're wanting to learn more, I recently introduced educational sessions specifically to address people's questions that come up around the podcast. These are the only sessions available to new clients, and you can find details in the About section of my Facebook page. I want to send each of you light and love, clarity and wisdom, and know that whether you realize it or not, there's a little brunette with a podcast who's got your back. Until next time, beloved, namaste.